Kia ora e hoa. Hello, my friend. Haere mai. Come and join me in the bean chair in the games corner. I've got lots of games, almost as many games as I have books. And look at this stack of books here. Do you know that every school in Aotearoa should have copies of these books? These books have been put out by the SPCA and they're about all kinds of wonderful animals. We've read a few of them already, and I thought today we could have this one here, Gannets and Grommets. It's a story by John Carr with illustrations by Michael Wilkin. Can you see the gannets flying? I wonder what grommets are. Do you know? Oh, not the grommets that you put in your ears. Let's find out. Are you nice and comfy? Ready for a story? Have you got a bean chair too? Well, snuggle down wherever you are and let's begin. Chapter 1. Josh was on his third week without Wi-Fi or tomato sauce, but he didn't mind. He loved staying with Pop during the summer holidays. He enjoyed the bush and the surf beach, and most of the time he enjoyed Pop's company. Pop was a plumber. Bits of pipe and hot water cylinders were piled up on the front lawn. In the middle there was an old bath that Pop called his water feature. The other feature was a letterbox. Pop had made it out of bits of plastic downpipe. It looked more like a submarine periscope than a letterbox, but Pop was proud of it. Josh and his surfing buddy Sandy were waxing their boards and talking about waves when Pop came onto the deck. Gannets and Grommets, he groaned. It's either young gannets squawking for food or it's young grommets squawking about waves. So a grommet is a young surfer under the age of 16. I've just read it here. Well, Pop, Josh said, you live near a surf beach with a gannet colony. What do you expect? I expect to be able to get some sleep once in a while, said Pop. You're supposed to be looking after me for 3 weeks, remember? Josh laughed. Pop looked at his watch. Just 3 days and 6 hours to go, he said. Then you grommets head back to school. Those gannet chicks will have enough feathers to fly back to Australia. I'll be heading back to bed. Don't worry, Pop. Today the waves are okay for our grommet group, said Josh. The surf lifesavers will be keeping an eye on us. We need to catch some waves. Here's a wave you can have without getting wet, laughed Pop. And he raised his arm. Goodbye. Pop's a bit of a hard case, isn't he? Chapter 2. Sandy was riding her second wave by the time Josh was ready. While he waited for the next set of waves, he watched the gannets soaring above him. They were scanning the water for small fish to feed their chicks. Josh loved watching the gannets. He was amazed at how they could change speed so quickly. 1 minute they were graceful birds soaring on the breeze. In the blink of an eye they were missiles hurtling towards a fish in the water. Wow! They do look beautiful, don't they? Floating on the breeze. As Josh watched one of the gannets diving into the water, he felt a swell beneath him. A wave. The next one felt bigger. He quickly turned his board and paddled as fast as he could. This was a good wave. If he didn't catch it, Sandy would tease him. As the board sped up, Josh scrambled to his feet. To his right, he noticed something white splashing about in the water. It was a gannet. She had surfaced from her dive, but was unable to fly. Josh knew that Sandy would tease him if he bailed, but that didn't matter. The gannet was in trouble. He had to do something. Oh no, I wonder what's wrong with the gannet. What's this here, I wonder? Chapter 3. The gannet was tangled in nylon fishing line. The line was tied to something. Every time the gannet tried to escape the water, a weight pulled her back. Josh knew what the weight was. It was an old spanner he had found on Pop's lawn. He felt terrible. The spanner and a milk bottle were part of a long line that Josh had made. He had dropped it from his surfboard the week before. He wanted to catch a snapper or two. The long line had disappeared in a storm. He could see that the fishing line was around the gannet's leg and wing. Worse still, one of the hooks was stuck in her beak. Oh, I don't know if you can see it, but look just here. There's a hook stuck in the gannet's beak. Ow! Chapter 4. Josh pulled on the nylon. It burned into his fingers as the bird struggled. He let it go. So much for Plan A, he thought. Plan B was to lift the bird onto his board. Then he could untangle the nylon and take out the hook. But Plan B was never going to work. The large and frightened gannet had moved on to Plan P for panic. She had already caused a gash on his arm. Josh was now bleeding into the water. He'd seen enough shark movies to think about Plan P himself, but he didn't. He didn't panic. He let the gannet go, raised his arm and screamed, "Shark!" I wonder why he did that. Chapter 5. Josh heard the IRB, an inflatable rescue boat, coming towards him. Before he could release his leg rope, a surf lifesaver had grabbed him and hauled him onto the boat. "You were lucky," she said, looking at the cut on Josh's arm. "Is the shark still around?" Josh smiled sheepishly. "It wasn't a shark. It was a bird," he muttered. He pointed to the frightened gannet. "She's going to drown and I can't save her by myself." Wow, a rescue boat has arrived. This is turning into an adventure, isn't it? Chapter 6. Josh and Sandy sat in Mrs. McGinty's backyard. Mrs. McGinty was the bird lady. She was a wildlife rehabber who rescued and treated wildlife. Mrs. McGinty was taking the fish hook out of the gannet's beak while Pop held the gannet firmly. "Gannets and Grommets, Mrs. McGinty," he sighed. "Gannets and Grommets." Sandy smiled at Josh. She wanted to make a joke about her surfing buddy. Rescued by surf lifesavers when he couldn't tell the difference between a great white shark and a gannet. Better not, she thought. That wouldn't have been kind, would it? I think Josh is already feeling bad about the gannet, don't you? Mrs. McGinty used pliers to cut off the barbed end of the hook. She pulled the hook out from the gannet's beak. "There you go, my beauty," she said, and placed the gannet in a cage. "After some food and a rest, you'll be back with the family in no time." Mrs. McGinty turned to the children. This one was lucky. Some swallow the hook and die of infection or starvation. Often the tangled ones drown and get washed up on the beach. If Josh wasn't feeling bad enough, Mrs. McGinty showed them photos of birds and animals injured by fishing lines or hooks. There were photos of gannets, gulls, shags, terns, blue penguins, and a fur seal pup. "Fishing lines, sinkers and hooks are a real problem," said Mrs. McGinty. On the way back to Pop's house, Josh and Sandy decided to do something about it. But what could they do? What could they do about the fishing lines and hooks? Chapter 7. The next day, Josh and Sandy were amazed at how much fishing line they found on the beach. They found lots among the seaweed, driftwood and mangrove seeds at the high tide mark. "Maybe we could put a couple of hook and nylon bins at the beach," said Josh. "Then people can dump their tangled nylon and hooks safely." But the bins need to be designed so that seabirds and kids can't get into them, Sandy said. They need to be easy to empty for recycling. That will probably be expensive. The children were thoughtful as they walked along the road. "Wait," said Josh. "I have a brilliant idea." "What is it?" she asked. Josh couldn't contain his excitement. "Pop's periscope," he said. Do you remember Pop's periscope? His letterbox? Chapter 8. Pop's periscope letterbox was the perfect design for a hook and nylon bin. There was enough old piping lying around Pop's place to make 2. The children had a bag of cement donated by Mrs. McGinty, sign writing donated by Sandy's brother, labour donated by Pop, and some wooden fence post donated by the last flood. It wasn't long before the beach had 2 new hook and nylon bins. A few days later, Pop checked his letterbox. As well as some tangled nylon that someone had put in there by mistake, he found an envelope addressed to Gannets and Grommets Limited. "It's from the council," said Pop. "They probably want us to take the bins down. We didn't ask their permission." The look on his face changed to delight as he read the letter. "They think the bins are a great idea and they want to pay us to build some more for all the fishing spots in the district." "Fantastic," said Josh. "That will give you something to do in the winter when you don't have me to look after." Pop laughed. "What am I going to buy with your share of the money?" Josh winked at Sandy. "How about Wi-Fi and tomato sauce?" Look, there's one of the periscope letterboxes for the nylon and the fishing hooks. It says, "This bin was kindly donated by Gannets and Grommets Limited." And that's the end of the story. But in the back of the book, there's some information. There's seabird facts and tips. And a place where you can find out more about this book and more about all the other books that the SPCA creates. If you want to find out more, you can go and visit kids.spcaeducation.org.nz. What a simple thing to do, taking away your fishing line and your hooks when you've been fishing. It could save a lot of sea creatures, couldn't it? There's lots of really simple things we can do to keep our beaches safe and clean. Go and have a look at that website, the SPCA website. I'll put the link down in the description below and see if there are other ways that you can get involved. Maybe they've got their colouring in competition live at the moment. Go and find out more. Oh, and come and visit me again soon. There's lots of books here to read. There's lots of games to play too. Maybe we could try one of those. Let me know if you'd like me to. Ka kite. Goodbye, my friend. Come and visit me again soon.